My name is Brady Knox with the Washington Examiner. We are here at the Azerbaijani Embassy in Washington, D.C. I am here with Ambassador Khazar Ibrahim. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
So, of course, it's been a very big past week for you with the historic deal with Trump. So, I know Azerbaijan was uncertain of how the second administration was going to go. So, what changed that brought this peace about, and who approached who first? Give us some insight into that.
Well, thank you so much for this interview. In fact, I wouldn't say that we were uncertain. Actually, we were more certain because we had good relation with the first Trump administration. It was very practical. We saw strategic vision. And of course, President Trump is a true leader, a true peacemaker. So that's why we knew from the very beginning, after he was elected, that there will be more efforts, not only in our region, but all around the world for peace, prosperity, and development. So therefore, it came very natural that new administration was interested in bringing peace and development to the region. And we worked together, and here we are, as you mentioned. Last week was a very big week, and we had peace agreements, we had joint declarations, we had memorandums of understanding. In a nutshell, we had good things moving forward.
So yeah, I want to get in part of that answer. So I want to go in Azerbaijan's perception of Trump's first administration and second administration. So of course, you said it had good relations the first one, but of course this seems much better. The second Nagorno-Karabakh war happened, the first administration, there wasn't much action. So what have the differences been between Trump's first and second administration from your view?
Well, look, the differences are not huge, because President Trump is President Trump. And when you have a leader who has a vision, as I said, who has a strategy, and when he has much bigger ideas for the good of the world, not only for the United States of America, there cannot be many differences in two administrations. Maybe circumstances were different. During first Trump administration, of course, COVID was there, so there was not much room for actions. There were less conflicts in the world, these hot conflicts. We see where the Middle East is today, we see Ukraine, we see Europe, in many other places, and they were very hot problems, which we tried to tackle and actually help to solve. So I wouldn't say there are much differences in terms of policies, in terms of actions, but differences were in terms of circumstances. Now there is more room for action because there are more problems in different parts of the world, which I believe President Trump is very successfully tackling.
And so to get back into the peace deal, so this is a blindsided a lot of people. So could you give us some insight as to how these negotiations with Trump began? Like who approached who? How did this all come about?
Well, actually, in terms of peace agreement, it was Azerbaijan who approached Armenia first, 4 years ago. Immediately after we liberated our territories, Azerbaijan extended its hand of peace to Armenia. We came up with the very basics of international law, of interstate relations, of country-to-country ties. And we offered to have a peace agreement with Armenia. Then we had negotiations. They were direct between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And I think both sides worked very effectively and very honestly. But in order to have peace deals to finalize, you need a global leader who can step up, who can help. And then literally 6 months ago, after the election of President Trump, there was a global leader who wanted to bring peace, and again, not only to South Caucasus, and who helped us to come together, as my president said, to the #1 capital city in the world, to #1 office in the world, with a global leader like Donald Trump.
And so in the U.S. brokered peace agreement, how direct of a role did President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have in the mediation?
Well, State Department and White House were directly involved, of course. But if you ask me what was the role of President Trump, of course, he's president of the United States. He has a global agenda. He cannot spend every minute on one single issue. He was a visionary. He was a strategic chief, if I may put it this way, and he was a pusher for that. So again, it's not for global leaders, for presidents to go to every detail of the issue. But he was the driving force and he made it happen. But both State Department and the White House were directly involved, and we really appreciate the efforts of everybody involved.
And so, there were about 5 years of negotiations, I would say. So what were the biggest impediments to peace that were overcome by this deal? What were the biggest hang-ups?
Well, in fact, it's not really the provisions. When you read it, you can see that they are really basics of the relations, as I mentioned before, between any two countries, any regional actors. The biggest impediment, I believe, was psychological. It was about trust, I believe, because since regaining our independence, Azerbaijan and Armenia, we never had a time when we had a real peace. Occupation was there. We were trying to solve these issues for quite a long time. There were mediators. Nothing was happening. And of course, there was no trust. I think this trust has started to be built. So that was the biggest impediment, trust. I wouldn't say that today we have full trust. It's literally impossible. I will be dishonest to say that. But we now have the growing, developing trust between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and that helps. So biggest impediment, I think, was psychological in terms of trust. And also, we never had the direct talks to each other. This is very important because at the end of the day, it will be Azerbaijan and Armenia, people of Azerbaijan and people of Armenia, leadership of Azerbaijan and leadership of Armenia, living next to each other, negotiating, working not only in the region but also internationally. So therefore, direct talks were very important, which we never had before. So I think these were two impediments, not having direct dialogue and not having a trust.
And so to clear up a lot of the confusion about the actual deal, so the ceremony in the Oval Office, so was that the signing of a final peace deal? Was that a preliminary? What was the deal that was signed? What does that mean?
No, it is a peace deal. It is a peace deal which we have negotiated, we finalized. But it was not signed. It was initialed by two foreign ministers, which literally means when you initial it, that it is there, you cannot change it, it is fixed, and only thing is needed just to sign it at some point. So this is what has happened there, and there was a joint declaration between two presidents, or between President of Azerbaijan and Prime Minister of Armenia, which was witnessed and signed by President Trump.
And so that means that there's a final peace deal that still needs to be had. So what are the impediments preventing a final deal?
Actually, there's just one left. There's just one left, and we have always been very straightforward and open with our Armenian counterparts. We all understand in the relations between two countries, if one has territorial claims against another, you can have million agreements, you can have 10,000 treaties, they will not work. So the one and only impediment remaining is Constitution of the Republic of Armenia, where the territorial claims against Azerbaijan. So we hope that in a very short period of time, that provision is changed in Armenia, then we can happily sign the final peace agreement.
And so one of Armenia's biggest, especially the Armenian diaspora community here in the United States, is the 120,000 Armenians that left Karabakh after the war, and then the Karabakh Armenians on trial in Baku. So are those topics still under discussion as part of a deal?
Well, we are not discussing that in our negotiations. We cannot discuss that because everything should be reciprocal. In diplomacy, in interstate relations, everything is reciprocal. There were Armenians who left Azerbaijan. We invited United Nations immediately. We invited international organizations. We're a law-abiding country to look into these issues, and they were very clear that Azerbaijan acted in full compliance with international law. At the same time, as far as the return of Armenians to Azerbaijan, and by the way, of Azerbaijanis to Armenia, because there are hundreds of thousands of Azerbaijanis who were forced to leave Armenia within the last 30 years. This is reciprocity. We do believe that every person has a right to go back wherever they want, but everything should be legal. And actually, for those Armenians who left Azerbaijan, government of Azerbaijan immediately created the avenue, the special portal through which they can legally request coming back. But the same conditions do not exist for Azerbaijanis who left Armenia, where they had property and many other things. So, as far as the Armenians on trial in Azerbaijan are concerned, it's not just what we want to have a trial for somebody. It's actual obligation of every state. If there are claims of some wrongdoings, and especially if there are grave things which one side believes has happened, there should be a legal process. And process is legal, it's not political, it's not anything else. So everybody has the right to defend himself or herself, but at the end of the day, law is law. It should be equal to everybody, Azerbaijanis, Armenians, domestically, internally, or internationally.
And so is Baku optimistic now that relations seem much better between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Is Baku optimistic about the possibility of Azerbaijanis returning to Armenia, Armenians returning to Azerbaijan? Do you see a deal in the future?
I think at the end of the day, there will be a lot of back and forth between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I've been always telling to many circles in Washington when they were asking, how do you see this, given all these animosities previously, how do you see the future? Do you think it's possible after all these issues and problems? And I was like, look at Europe, right? Germany and France, after World War II, right? Who could have been in much more difficult situation than Germany and France? What they managed to do through cooperation, through steel and coal, start European integration, first between these two countries, and look where the European Union is today, where Germany is today, where France is today. So why not to have the same in South Caucasus? Let's not forget about our neighbors and friends, Georgians, right? We should be owners of our region, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia. So I do believe there will be a lot of back and forth from Armenia to Azerbaijan, from Azerbaijan to Armenia, Georgians both ways, three countries together. This is the only way to have peace and prosperity in the region. I do believe in that, and I'm sure that we will start, and work has already started. Foreign ministers immediately had a direct phone conversation after all the documents were signed in Washington, D.C., and I think it's a very good sign that Azerbaijan and Armenia will move into a very positive and bright future for South Caucasus.
And on the facilitation of the negotiations themselves, of course, the two very close mutual allies are Turkey and Israel. So did either of those countries have a role in bringing the U.S. into negotiations?
Well, President Trump is President Trump. He is a global leader. I don't think that he needs anybody to be brought in. So I think diplomatically there is no way for anybody to bring him in. He is already, anyway, he wants to be as President of the United States of America and then the President with all this global agenda. But at the same time, again, for example, on Turkey played a very positive role in all these issues. President of Turkey engaged with Prime Minister of Armenia. He traveled to Turkey. There were engagements. There were positive signs. With Israel, we have good and positive relations, but I don't no, and I don't think that Israel played any role in this. What can be a role for the regional actors like Turkey or Israel is to support future engagements, to support future developments. For example, again on Turkey, when we have this route, right, called Trump route for peace and prosperity. When we have that, we'll need a lot of companies involved. We will need a lot of trade happening there. And of course, Turkey is right over there. This line of communication will be going through Turkey and from Turkey to Asia as well. So there will be a big role for that. And why not to have the role for Israel as well, technologically and also in terms of other things.
You brought up the name of the route. So was that, I read somewhere that that actually wasn't Trump's idea, that someone else had proposed that. Do you know who was it Azerbaijan, is it Armenia?
No, I don't know who came with this idea, but I think it's a great idea. Having the name of the President of the United States at the same line with peace and prosperity. They are mutually reinforcing words, I believe.
And so we're talking about other countries in the neighborhood. So the other big one is Russia, which had the central role in negotiations before. So did Azerbaijan's decline in relations with Russia, was that connected to the U.S. taking its place in mediations between?
No, we never decline or agree on any mediation or whatever, right? Russia is part of the region. There are other neighbors as well. All of them can have a role on different issues. They had a role before. But right now, it was, again, President Trump, a global leader, who could make it happen.
And so now that relations are opening up between the U.S. and Azerbaijan, what is Baku especially pursuing in bilateral relations with the United States and Azerbaijan?
Well, we have agreed to elevate our relations to the strategic level. And in fact, if you look at the history of our relations, we always had a backbone very strategic, mostly on economy, energy, and on security. In 1994, in Azerbaijan, so-called contract of the century was signed with the involvement of major American energy companies, with the involvement of the US government, which allowed to use Azerbaijani oil and then gas to transport it to Europe and provide Europe with energy security. And then we had all these major pipelines built, oil pipelines, gas pipelines, which connected Caspian Sea to Europe. So economy, energy has always been there. And during this trip too, the major agreement was signed with ExxonMobil to work in Azerbaijan. But also in terms of security, immediately after attacks of 9/11, Azerbaijan was among the very first countries who supported the United States of America. We sent troops to Iraq, to Afghanistan. We were actually the last to leave Kabul airport together with American, British, and Turkish troops. We stayed till the end there. We provided most overflight during the operations in Afghanistan, on counterterrorism, you name it. We have had always these strategic relations, which we believe we will revive and move forward.
And so, from what I was thinking, there were sanctions against defense exports to Azerbaijan, which might have been low. So, is there increased interest in Baku of security or defense interactions in the future?
It's mutually beneficial. It's the interest both of the United States and Azerbaijan. And right now, yes, Section 907 is waived by President Trump, and I believe there will be more cooperation in this field.
And of course, now that there's a sudden boost in U.S.-Azerbaijan relations, do you think there's a chance of Trump visiting Azerbaijan?
There is always a chance, but it's not for me to decide. I will be very happy if President Trump decides to travel to Azerbaijan, and I will be honored to accompany him. And Azerbaijan is and has always been one of the most welcoming places for global leaders, and President Trump is special for Azerbaijan. for people of Azerbaijan and for the president of Azerbaijan, which he mentioned. So again, if he decides to go, it will be a great honor for us.
All right, Ambassador, thank you so much for having us here. Has been Brady Knox with the Washington Examiner here at the Azerbaijani Embassy in Washington, D.C.